Recording in progress.
Progress.
Oh my god. It's like totally recording.
Oh my god.
Okay.
I hear they are casting for the new Barbie film, right?
Right then, we're here. We're back. Been a couple of weeks. Well, been more than that. But
Yeah, and as you can tell, there is a slight decrease in our production value this week.
entirely Dan's
Apologies.
fault.
Yeah,
Entirely Dan's fault.
I'm between properties, so I will suffer with some Bluetooth headphone quality. But
Yes.
you know, you
Well,
get to still hear me, and for that you should be grateful.
mm,
Anyway,
so Halloween is upon us.
it might even be the today if this goes
The
out on
today,
Halloween,
it
which would
could
make
be the
perfect sense.
it could indeed be the today. So let's go with horror themed week.
Like strictly.
Yes. um, I guess let's just crack
Well,
on.
let's jump in. So you and I, bonded's too strong a word, but you and I have had good discussions about horror films in
Mm-hmm.
the Steelbook Blu-ray Slack,
Mm-hmm.
DMs and whatever.
Yep.
And we talked a lot about our horror influences here on the Culture Trumpet podcast.
Yes.
So I guess start at the beginning. What do you look for? Because basically what we're going to do is look for our top pick Halloween watches.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, there's a horror themed quiz.
Yes. Or depending on your point of view, if you're unlucky, there's a horror theme quiz.
Yeah, which I'm unlucky. So, what's your background in horror? So, what were you looking for what do you look for a horror film now? What were some of your favourites growing up, and what got you into genre?
Right. Background, I grew up during the video Nasties hysteria in the 80s.
Right.
So while I wasn't particularly a fan of horror in terms of seeking it out, I was kind of, even at a young age, completely mystified by this whole video nasties thing.
Well, maybe I think start a bit. I think some of our listeners may want a bit more context. What was the video nasties era other than the 80s?
So, basically what happened, go back to the late 70s, home video was taking off, right? And obviously it was a huge market that exploded almost out of nowhere. Home video distributors were keen to get their hands on just anything they could, just to fill demand, right? Whether it was old movies, like old Hollywood movies, or maybe outside copyright. Obviously, the studios were there releasing their big blockbusters, but so many independents sprung up just after anything they could get their hands on.
Right.
And at the time in the UK, for a film to be shown in a cinema, it had to have a rating, right?
Right.
Whatever they were at the time, A, X rated, whatever they were. On home video, there was no legal requirement for a film to have a certificate for home video release, which meant these independents could go out and just get anything from anywhere in terms of sex, violence,
rock and roll,
gore, whatever, rock and roll, and just release it without having to go via the BBFC. Now, the BBFC is different. For those in America, there's obviously the MPA who give films ratings, but in America, you can release films unrated. It doesn't happen very often, but legally, you can release films without a rating in America. In the UK, that's not the case, except in very special circumstances for kind of film club stroke educational purposes, or perhaps a festival limited showing where it might be a one-off for, those kind of critiquing purposes, right? Generally speaking, in the UK, if it doesn't have a certificate, it's not getting shown. Anyway.
Okay, thank you.
That didn't apply on home video in the late 70s and early 80s, which meant there was stuff like the stuff you've heard of: Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Cannibal Holocaust, Cannibal Ferox, these kind of, cheap, extremely violent slasher movies from America, from Europe, all over the world were being released. And what happened was, they obviously, they were starting to get complaints, or certain people were complaining. The press, newspapers, and MPs who wanted to make a name for themselves, plus a change, right, were kind of kicking up a fuss.
Right.
And they couldn't be withdrawn or banned under any kind of film-related legislation, but they could be prosecuted under the Obscene Publications Act.
Right. Okay.
as liable to deprave and corrupt. Something like that was the wording, right? So what happened was a lot of these independent labels were prosecuted under the Obscene Publications Act, and films like Evil Dead, for example. It's to the point where Sam Raimi came to the UK to give evidence on behalf of the UK distributor of Evil Dead.
Never knew that.
Yeah, yeah. It was a ridiculous situation. But a load of films ended up being banned under the Obscene Publications Act. Then the Video Recordings Act came in 1984, which brought home video under the control of the BBFC as well,
Okay.
which meant that any home video releases had to go through the BBFC. What happened then was everything that had been released up until that date on home video was recalled, taken off the shelves.
Right.
It then had to be classified by the BBFC. So what you ended up there with a combination of things. Either the labels, distributors just didn't bother, and these tapes were lost to time.
Okay.
And never ever got a release until recently. Well, obviously some of these boutique labels are now picking up some of these 70s and 80s movies.
Yep.
They were certified by the BBFC and given a certificate. Now, in some cases they were cut, some cases they were uncut, in some cases they were massively cut, like shredded, basically.
Right.
In other cases they were simply refused a certificate. So films like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Exorcist, and a few others, right? They were simply refused to be certificated, or certified rather, whether they were cut or not. The BBFC just went, nah, that's not getting it.
Not for us, thank you.
So that was the result. That was all going on during the early to mid 80s.
Right.
While it was, it was a free for all, right? You could just come along, set up a distribution company, buy a film from Italy for a few £100, set up a bank of duplicating machines,
Yeah.
and make your money, right? So that obviously had the predictable effect of then having this big underground thing where all of a sudden you couldn't get hold of a load of Lucio Fulci's movies or Dario Argento uncut or anything like that, and so people just started passing around pirate copies or importing them off the black market or whatever, right?
I have to say, I'm gonna pause you here.
Yeah.
I expected a quick 2 minute, those films that were banned that were passed around like comics, and was
Yeah, but you did ask for some background.
So being the operative
anyway,
word here, Mister.
Well, you interrupted just as I was getting to the point.
Fucking hell! Like there was a point.
So that's the era that I grew up in.
Oh, we got there. Thank God for
that. That was my.
We're in a new decade, just waiting for that.
That was shut the. That was my. There's the context.
Thank you.
For my exposure to horror films.
Gotcha.
Right. So I was never particularly a fan of horror films, but I was intrigued by. Well, hang on. What is it? Why is it up to some people to decide what other people can and can't watch?
See, now that's interesting. So that's where you and I differ.
So no, well, again, around all this was Mary Whitehouse, right?
Who's she?
She was a campaigner, or a quote unquote decency campaigner for good Christian family values.
Oh, right, okay.
Right. So TV and film were her regular targets. And she had this thing called the Viewers and Listeners Association, which I think is still going, who would complain about sex and violence on TV and film and so on. And again, it was one of those things was they would report on how many swear words or how violent certain shows were. And it's like as if they're protecting us, right? And it's like, so it's all right for you to watch these things and produce a report because you're incorruptible, right?
Mm-hmm.
But us poor plebs, we can't possibly. So that was my opinion. That was my kind of view of it, right? Who are they to say what we can and can't watch?
Right. Okay.
And of course, it's in human nature. As soon as you're told you can't watch something, you want to go fucking watch it, right? So I'd watch a few stuff. I mean, I remember watching American Werewolf in London when I was maybe 9, 10 years old, a friend's house.
Yeah.
Loved it.
They were never watched at your house, were they? Let's face it. All of this dodgy goings on was always at other people's houses. Yeah, I was the same.
So I liked that because it was funny, but it was meant to be funny, right? It had a nice kind of wit to it.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, was never a fan of slasher movies like Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday 13th.
Ah,
That's something I've come to appreciate more later, which we'll get onto, right? But I was never a fan of those just because they just look stupid. And so
okay.
I was looking for horror films that were like, no, this is a horror film. I shouldn't be laughing at a horror film. I need a horror film that makes you feel uncomfortable, right? Or
Right.
kind of gets in there. And the first one I saw that really got to me in that way was Hellraiser.
Yes, yes.
In terms of it's a serious one, it's British, awesome, but also it's a serious
All right,
horror film.
Brexit.
It's
Yeah, make Britain great again. All right.
but it's not laughing and joking.
No, it's done in a
Uh,
way that is there's a serious undertone.
yeah.
It's not some of the sequels we may say might become a bit tongue in cheek in the end, but
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
but the
it's
original one is satanic, which isn't something that's done particularly often and done well, I should say.
no,
But it still creeps me out, Hellraiser. But there we go.
yeah. So that was my kind of more favored kind of horror movie. The
Okay.
serious ones that make you think, maybe not necessarily make you think, but they weren't just hack and slash teenagers getting high, having sex, getting killed.
Okay.
You know, so that
You
was
went for the more highbrow kind of
yes,
horror.
highbrow.
Okay,
That's all right.
that's yeah.
So how about you? What was yours? What's your background? And keep it brief. Come on, we haven't got all day.
Yeah. So glad you asked. Thank you for asking. I grew up in a different generation to Mark, but well, not generation. That's too mean. Different decades. Let's put it that way.
Well, that's better. Thank you.
Yeah, 'cause Mark's probably not old enough to be my granddad. And very much the same. I had older friends, obviously out of the video nasty era now, where DVDs were a thing. Most things were rated, but I had older friends who were watching the likes of 13 Ghosts, the Final Destination, the early Final Destination films, and I was absolutely too young to be watching these in the cinema. So were my friends, to be honest. So they might have been around 13. I was probably around 9, 10, push 11, probably 9 or 10.
Yeah.
And you'd be over the house playing, I don't know, Connects or whatever. And my mate's older brother happened to have on Final Destination 2, and it was the lift scene where she gets decapitated.
Mm-hmm.
It's not scary. It's not boo. It's graphic. It's gory.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, I can. I didn't like it because I felt wrong for watching it because I knew I wasn't allowed to watch those kinds of films at that age. But then the morbid curiosity of, well, they're showing people dying, which is weird, but it's a film, so it's okay. So then after that, I got into slashers because again, it was a bit more comic. It sounds horrible, people are murdered, aren't they? But it was done in a more tongue-in-cheek way, not like Hellraiser.
Yeah.
And I remember watching the first Nightmare on Elm Street because I was genuinely scared of Freddy Krueger at the time, and I liked it. It was camp, it was over the top, and of all the horror that was out there at that point, it was probably one of the nicer ones you could watch.
Okay.
And from there, I got into Saw, which again is body horror, torture stuff, which is not a great genre to admit that you like. But it was more how are they going to do it this time? How can you kill someone in Final Destination for the 5th film? That's where I came in. I don't like jump scares at all.
Yeah.
So when the Paranormal Activity franchise launched in the mid 2000s, I was of the age to go to the cinema to watch these things. I remember going to see number 2. I shat myself throughout the entire film. And the only thing that's scary in it is it goes boo a lot.
Yeah.
There's not much more to think about other
Visually,
than
there's nothing really. It's all in the sound design.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's the scene where all the cupboards, all the pans go everywhere. It's silent for a minute, and all of a sudden, bang! And I jumped out of my skin. So I didn't like feeling on edge like that in the cinema, and I've got better with that as I've got older. But there's still an element of I want something to work away in the background over 20 minutes of a segment rather than a cheap boo, here we go. But there are some fantastic films which I do come on to. I think we're going to come on to of what we like,
yeah,
of what we recommend over Halloween,
yeah.
where boo scares are delivered incredibly well for really good effect. But yeah, so yeah. Bottom line of that is, grew up in a different era. Era is still a wrong word. Sorry, Mark. I'm not trying to make you feel ancient. I'm trying to be nice about this.
That's all right. That's all right.
We did grow up in a completely different time where things for me were more accessible because they were out in the open. Whereas obviously for yourself, it was like, I don't know, passing around porn in school. I don't know. Whatever you do in your free time is yours. Two very different experiences of getting into horror, I think, is what I'm trying to draw from that.
Definitely.
But it is something that I've become more interested in as I've got older, and I think I've got to the point now where I feel quite desensitized to some of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a massive risk if you're a fan of that genre, because watching the original Hellraiser for the second time, I think, in its entirety the other month, I was completely creeped out and freaked out. But then watching Saw, that I've seen 1,000 times, like, yeah, whatever. That's his guts. Yeah, cool. But I don't know. It's everybody remembers that first film that gave them nightmares.
Yeah.
What was yours?
I don't remember that, to be honest. So that spoiled that little thing.
There's me thinking, I think I know what it was, but I don't. But a friend of mine,
go on.
It was 13 Ghosts.
Okay.
He's slightly older than me, but he watched it younger than I would have been when I first watched it, and yeah, again, his older brother showed it to him. Had nightmares for a while.
I don't know that. I don't think any have, because I've always been aware.
It's not real, I guess, right?
Yeah, basically. I remember when I was younger, I had this. I can't remember what it's called now, but I had a book that kind of explained in really simple terms about a whole range of film special effects.
Oh, right, cool.
Right, and like monster movies and model planes and whatever you might do for a movie. So I always knew that if there was a monster in a film, I've read about that in a book. It's either someone wearing a latex mask or it's like an animatronic puppet. And that was it. So I just knew it was fake.
Because I used to always watch the special effect bits, featurettes on the DVDs. The Final Destination ones were brilliant.
Now, I was obsessed with those. There used to be a show, an ITV used to show it late night, and it was an American show, and I think it was called Movie Magic. And I think you can still get some of the episodes on YouTube. And it basically was like late 80s, early 90s. That like each episode they'd cover a couple of films and like completely go behind the scenes on how they were made.
Oh yeah, I do remember that.
All of that stuff I was totally obsessed with. It ran from 94 to 97, actually. Yes. And yeah, I think you can get it. I think you can get them on YouTube. So I would devour anything like that. As you say, once like Laserdisc and DVD came along, all the documentaries and special features I would go through, but the books and everything before then. So I always had a thing in the back of my mind that whatever was happening on the screen, I knew it wasn't real.
Yeah,
and so
that does help.
It never got to me, I would sit and like admire it. So in terms of like American Werewolf in London, right? The transformation, I'd like sat slack-jawed at how amazing it looked. Other people might be hiding behind the cushions at my friend's house, but I'd be going, look how they did that there, that bit there.
Yeah.
And like with his friend who's gradually deteriorating and rotting away through the film, how his makeup is getting more and more rotting,
Yeah.
I just like that just fascinated me in terms of the kind of artistry and so on of that. So I always, I think, had that detachment, just knowing it wasn't real. And so I guess that's maybe why I wanted the stuff that was a little bit more serious, because if it can't scare me because I know it's not real, then it's got to engage me in some other way.
Yeah, that's fair.
There's got to be something else it has that does get my attention. Yeah.
Okay, I like that.
That could be it. That could be it. Well, there we go. After all these years, that's it. Finally explained it.
So, obviously, Universal Studios were paramount in getting a horror genre off the ground.
Universal were Universal and Paramount were Paramount.
Right.
Well, you just said Universal Studios were paramount in getting the genre off the ground, but
Oh, you dick! I
Paramount
fell
were a
for that.
different,
I fell for
two
that.
different studios.
I absolutely fell for that. Okay. Don't know how to recover out of that one.
You're not gonna. I'm gonna leave that in.
Yeah, no,
Keep going.
valid. Well, Universal Studios were very good with
Leaders,
leaders, thank you,
groundbreaking. Yeah.
getting movie monsters off the ground, right? So you got your
Mhm.
classics, Dracula, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, yada yada yada, Swamp
Yeah,
Thing, or whatever.
yeah. Swamp
Obviously,
Thing.
that's going Man from the Creature from the Black Lagoon,
Yeah,
whatever.
that was it.
Can't remember. Wolfman, keep going.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Obviously, those were probably 100 years old now at this point.
Dracula was
1930s.
what, early 30s? Yeah,
Yeah,
almost there.
so
90
getting on.
years. 90 years at least.
In recent times, horror has had, I think, a bit more of a revival for the masses, not just, oh, you're a freak, you like horror. With the reboot of Halloween, blah, blah, blah. We still don't get paid to talk about Halloween on this podcast, and we really should.
You think we think we are, wouldn't you?
What do you think modern horror is like now, and in the state of the genre and where it's going?
I think there's a real mix of stuff. I think in general, I think it's in pretty good shape. I think that it went through a period. I think.
Well, I can help you there. I think it
Go
went
on.
through a period of everything was paranormal, found footage.
There was
With
that.
Paranormal Activity spawned. I mean, Blair Witch is the best.
Yeah.
The Blair Witch Project, the best found footage film. You could argue VHS comes close, but Paranormal Activity revived that genre and spawned an incredible franchise. Whether you like them or not, you can't deny it's done well.
Oh yeah.
I got bored of all that paranormal demon bollocks. What is coming back? Go on. So you finish your point because I helped you.
I was going to say that I think one of the things it went through a period of being a little bit up its own arse, clever. Now, it started really strong with Wes Craven's New Nightmare and Scream in terms of films that are as much about horror films as they are horror films themselves.
I see how you mean that.
That kind of meta, self-referential, very clever way of doing it that got a little bit carried away. The Scream franchise itself, I think, managed to keep on track, but there were certainly other films came along that tried to replicate that to varying degrees. Then there was the kind of quote-unquote torture porn period. So you had like things like the original Saw,
Hostel films,
Hostel, yeah.
Yeah.
Which again, in terms of like serious horror films, were right up my street, and I really enjoyed them. But they kind of went away. I think what's really over the last 10 years or so, what's really not saved horror, but really helped horror is Blumhouse.
Thank you so much for mentioning that.
Because what he's done there is he's gone, right, we're not going to give you much money, but we are going to let you do what you want. You go off and make the film you want to make.
So again, bit of context.
Yeah.
The Blumhouse studio started the likes of The Nun, in Insidious, which was on my list of things you should watch over Halloween.
Yeah.
And they are, again, segue into a segment. Have some fantastic jump scares, but with that tension and release, gradually building to this big climax, and it works. It's not just nothing, bang, oh, okay, nothing. Lulls into a false sense of security, but also Blumhouse is a studio, like you said, lets them do what they want. Not a lot of money, but it's horror by horror fans, like true horror fans, that want to do it justice, I feel.
Yeah. Well, you look at something like, I mean, Blumhouse came out of Paranormal Activity. So yes. Jason Blum was one of the ones who bought the film, right? So I think it was Orin Pirelli or Pelli, I forget the guy's name, but he made the film and he was shopping it around various festivals and
studios
so on.
And that, yeah.
And basically, Blumhouse, Jason Blum chipped in and kind of paid towards getting it finished and tidied up and released. And it was made for $15,000. I'm sure they spent maybe a couple of million extra finishing it and tidying it and everything, but it made nearly $200 million worldwide. Huge hit, right? He then went on.
Filmed in director's own home, don't forget.
That's right, exactly. So that was a massive hit. They then went on to doing, like you said, Insidious, The Purge.
Less said about The Purge, the better.
I love the Purge films, personally. I think they're great.
Like
But
the first one. Let's not go into that.
but then you've got obviously like the whole paranormal series, the Purge series. They did Split, the M. Night Shyamalan film, Get Out. Jordan Peele's first.
You can see, so it was born out of this low budget, and then it booted up into this massive studio, which it really is.
And even now, the budgets are still modest, let's say. But the point is, that's fine, because for every film that doesn't hit, there'll be another one that does massively hit and more than makes up for it, and they're willing to take that chance. So you got someone like M. Night Shyamalan, who kind of was in the wilderness for a while. He'd had a couple of big flops, and he was probably getting a bit too big for his boots and whatever. But it was no longer like this box office gold. And then he came along and did Split, which was just a huge hit. Again, low budget, through Blumhouse, and it was a massive hit. And the budget was less than $10 million. And it made about 270 odd million. So yeah, I think what has helped horror over the last few years is Blumhouse and their trust in filmmakers to make the films they want to make. And we've had like proper full-on horror movies. We've had kind of social commentary stuff. We've had fun things like Happy Death Day. And Truth or Dare, which is brilliant. The hide and seek horror comedy. Yep. The Halloween trilogy, obviously, the new Exorcist trilogy that's coming along. Yeah, Blumhouse, I think, have a lot to.
Especially, we have a lot to thank them for.
Yes, absolutely.
What I like as well is Jason's really good on Twitter about saying what he wants to do, and he has been vocal in saying he wants to get the rights to Freddy and do Nightmare on Elm Street. I've read it.
Oh, I'd love to see that.
Me too, because this is the thing. The slasher franchises are back up and running. Obviously, Halloween's done really well. We're not going to talk about Halloween Ends today because I've not seen it yet. But that has done remarkably well. Child's Play's had a bit of a resurgence. Hellraiser's obviously done incredibly well with the new one.
Yeah.
What's missing is Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah. I'd love to see what
glory they do with that. Days.
I'd love to see them get hold of that and try something with it.
It's good. We're getting there. So,
I think in general, the state of horror is good. I
Likewise, I'd agree with that.
There's clunkers, but then again, well, look at what's in the news over the last couple of weeks. Is Terrifier 2.
Yeah.
Which is a 2.5 hour long, $250,000 budget movie.
2.5 hours.
It's something like that, yeah. It's over. I'm sure it's over 2 hours. It's about 130, 140 minutes. And it's
2 hours 28 minutes. I can confirm.
There you go. So, $250,000 budget, and it's currently at the box office. It's made $5 or $6 million at the box office, which for any studio film, that's a flop, right? But this is like a big hit. And it's not a wide release, it's on a limited number of screens, but the people are turning out for it. Yeah, I think horror is in a good place. You're always going to have your franchise films. You're always going to have like your Halloweens and whatever else comes along. Obviously, like Exorcist, as I said, is getting a new one. But like companies like Blumhouse will go to a director, right? What ideas have you got? And you'll get these original ideas like The Purge, like Happy Death Day, and like The Black Phone, the Scott Derrickson film, which has got some great reviews, and like the Invisible Man remake was
Oh, that's a valid point.
was a Blumhouse one. So they're even doing, again, low budget, but not even straight horror, even kind of sci-fi horror. Fantastic. I think that's what it needs. I think what you ended up with was the studios were so worried about losing money.
I was going to say it's a risk doing a horror film. Massive risk.
Well,
It can be.
It can be, but for a studio, they got into their heads that they had to spend a lot on these films to make money back and marketing, etc., etc. And it's like you don't. You just need a good idea that catches. You don't have to spend 40, 50 million, because if you spend 40, 50 million on a film production, you've got to spend the same amount again on the marketing. You've got to make $100 million before you even get your money back.
Yeah, valid.
Right? But spend 5 million, get it out there on festivals, word of mouth, etc. You don't need, by the time it makes 20 million, 30 million, you're in profit.
Yeah.
You're going to make your next one. And that's what Blumhouse are doing. They're just, I say churning out, and that's not meant in a derogatory way, but they're churning out these low to medium low budget films, but giving the creators the freedom. And you've ended up with stuff like, this isn't Blumhouse, this is Warner Brothers, but like the whole Conjuring universe.
Yeah.
Where there's been the main Conjuring films and then all the offshoots. And again, similar model where it's low budget. It's James Wan is basically overseeing the whole thing in one way or another. But it's built up this hugely successful franchise on a series of very modestly budgeted films. They're just made well, and they take the subject matter seriously.
James Wan's proven himself time and time again. That's the method to success, because look at Saw. He's behind that.
Absolutely, yeah.
A college film essentially.
Yeah. And here we are now. They've announced there's going to be another Saw film.
Lovely segue into our news.
What's in the news?
So news. I mean, not too much that we want to go into, because we've got some fun stuff to go into.
Mm-hmm.
Halloween Ends is out now for the world to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Probably won't go into it, but I think it's divided audiences. Less said about that the better at the moment, maybe.
I'll keep it brief. I've watched it. I can see exactly why it's divided audiences.
Cool.
But overall, I enjoyed it.
Good. I'm glad.
We'll discuss that perhaps in more detail in the future.
Cool. Terrifier 1 and 2 is going viral because people are passing out in the cinema. It's probably all viral marketing rubbish, but apparently incredibly graphic and gory, so that's a good one. Biggest one, though, we'll finish on this bit, is that Saw 10th Saw film, is happening. It is coming back, and they have announced, and this is a spoiler if you don't want to know, that Tobin Bell is returning. So Jigsaw himself, which I'm really excited about. He's a fantastic actor.
I can't wait. Be interesting to see how they bring him back in, because obviously he's been dead since the third film,
which is probably nearly 20 odd years now.
Yeah. And then he was obviously featured via flashbacks in the other films.
2006.
But yeah, that'll be. I love the Saw films, right? So I'm always up for another one. And it does look like it's going to be a proper Saw film rather than a spiral from the world of Saw. We've covered this
in the past, and I'm glad they've come to their senses on that.
Yeah, I think so. So I'll be interested to see. I think I mentioned to you via chat the other day, one idea I had was it could be that perhaps the events of the early films told more from his point of view, where we dip in and out of those films Back to the Future 2 style.
Yeah, that'd be
good. Which could be cool, but who knows? Nothing's been announced in terms of the story or who else is going to be in it. But it is being directed. I forgot the guy's name. Kevin somebody, who he's directed some of the previous films and he's been an editor on the previous films. So they're keeping it all in-house, let's say.
Which is good.
I'm looking forward to that. So, okay.
Should we do a quiz?
Shall we do the quiz? Okay, let's do the quiz. Let's do the quiz.
It's Dan versus Mark. It's Dan versus Mark.
Jingle. So, we decided to have a horror-based quiz for you lot.
Yes.
And basically, it's the usual thing. 5 questions, trivia, quotes, whatever you want to ask the other person.
Mm-hmm.
Mark with the highest score wins. That's usually what happens.
Do you want to go
considering,
first?
I will. But considering your breadth of horror is far greater than mine, I can already guarantee I'm going to score low on this one.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Okay then. Your first question, sir. In the original A Nightmare on Elm Street, what is Nancy's address?
Elm
We've only
Street.
got we've only got 40 minutes on Zoom. You might want to answer something.
Nancy's house, Elm Street.
Unfortunately, it's not that.
Oh, go on then.
1428 Elm Street.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
I didn't know that, but you know. Yeah.
Okay. Name one of the businesses in Shaun of the Dead named after horror icons.
Oh, I like that. One of the businesses.
There's at least, I think there's just 2. There might be more, but I've got 2 in mind.
I'm trying to think of the quote in my head. Kill Phil, grab them, go back to the for a pint and wait for us to all blow up. I can't even remember what the pub's called.
Winchester.
Oh, I mean, I'd go with that because Winchester isn't that off Supernatural?
Which came after Shaun of the Dead, didn't it? But
I don't
that's
know.
not
Well,
the answer.
No.
That's not the
I
answer.
can't even remember where Sean works.
That's one of the answers.
Is one of them going to be Romero's?
Not quite.
Because it's something to do with it's obviously something to do with Dawn of the Dead, George Romero, or Night of the Living Dead, George A. Romero. So I don't know the answer, but I know the logic behind it.
Okay. Sean works at Forey Electronics, which is named after Ken Forey, who starred in Dawn of the Dead.
Brilliant.
And he also tries to make a reservation at Fulci's restaurant.
Not a clue.
A famous Italian horror director.
Oh, good for them.
Your turn.
What is the Exorcist's demon's name?
Pazuzu.
Correct. Lovely point there.
What is the name of the killer in Friday the 13th?
Pamela Voorhees.
Oh, well done. You didn't fall for that one. Well done.
No, it's a fantastic pub quiz question. How many kills does Jason have in the original Friday the 13th? Everyone goes like 7 or 8, and you go, it's none. Pamela.
Go on then.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was waiting for the next question for some reason. Name the film this quote is from. It's not the house that's haunted, it's your son. It's not the house that's haunted, it's your son. Weirdly, we've already mentioned this film in the past 40 odd minutes or however long we are at this point.
Is it Insidious?
Oh, very good. Well done.
Oh, there we go.
It is. Because yes, obviously the mum and dad think it's
that's it.
The house, and then poor little kid.
How many Living Dead films did George Romero direct?
Ooh. This is a guess. 3.
No. 6.
Okay.
6.
So what? Night of the Living Dead.
Yep. Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead. Oh, yep. Hang on. What was the question?
How many Living Dead films did George Romero direct?
Dawn of the Dead is part of that, is it?
Yeah, that's the second one. Dawn of the Dead, then Day of the Dead.
Return of the Night of the Living Dead?
No. Return is not a George Romero film.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Return is his business partner who split off to make his own series.
Okay.
But George Romero then did 3 more. Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, and Survival of the Dead.
Pretty much the same shit though, right?
Pretty much. Zombies in it.
Which is the one which has got brains in it?
That's Return of the Living Dead. They're more. That's more of a comedy zombie film.
Yeah. Tar. What's his name? He's got a name.
Or the tar monster thing, yeah.
Whatever. Anyway. Yeah. Okay, that's a really good question. I like that one. I gestured at the screen with the Vicks then as well. Anyway, this is a great question. Okay, number 4. Many people left the theatre due to motion sickness and dizziness because of this 2008 horror flick. What was it?
Oh, would that have been Blair Witch Project?
Final answer?
Yeah.
No, 2008, Mark. You're thinking 1999. Blair Witch was
Well,
way before that.
are you trying to tell me Cloverfield's a horror film?
Yep. What is
Well,
it?
it's a
It's a
science
horror
fiction
film.
film, isn't it? It's a
No, it's
monster
scary.
movie. It's a monster movie.
What? So,
It's a
so,
Godzilla thing.
so Wolfman and Creature
No,
from the
it's
Black
not that
Lagoon.
kind of
It's a
monster
monster.
movie. It's like a
You can't. You,
kaiju.
no, you
It's a
can't.
big
You can't define
city
monsters, mate.
destroying
Nope.
Godzilla shit going down. That's not a horror
Horror film,
film.
mate. Horror film.
I reject the premise of the question.
We've still got your wrong year, regardless.
Well, only because I know
10 years
Cloverfield
out.
isn't a horror film.
It's a horror film. Okay, I'll change the question. Many people left the theatre due to motion sickness and dizziness because of this 2008 flick. What was it?
It's the question that's in the wrong quiz, is what it is, because it's
Well,
not a horror film.
still didn't get it.
Let's move on. I knew it was Cloverfield. The reason I didn't say
Why did you
Cloverfield
answer?
because I thought you'd got the year wrong, because clearly
Oh, loser.
Cloverfield isn't a horror film.
It is a horror film.
Right,
Here
my
we go.
turn.
Hang on, no. Get in the bin. BBFC,
Yeah.
Cloverfield. Fact Jack and Alf is going to look at this in a sec.
Yeah.
Right? What have they said? Oh, it's an education case study. That's silly. Bob-a-dob-a-dom. Release. Contains strong sustained threat and moderate horror. Horrors being the operative word
Moderate
there.
horror, because
It
it's
does
not
say
a horror
science-
film.
It
And
does
it
say
says science fiction,
thriller.
doesn't it? Science
It
fiction
does.
thriller, not a horror. Yeah, exactly.
It does. Yeah, okay.
Right then, my turn.
Genre, action. We're both wrong. There we are. Move on.
What is the name of the ship in the film Event Horizon?
Oh, that's mean. Because they go to the Event Horizon. But for the life of me, that's a sci-fi film anyway.
That's more clearly a sci-fi horror. More than
The-
fucking Cloverfield, mate. It's N18.
I don't know what the ship they go from, but it's the Event Horizon is the ship.
That they go to.
Sure.
That's the right answer, yeah.
Okay, I was thinking you were going to catch me out on that one because.
Oh no, well the ship they go from is the Lewis and Clark.
Right.
But the ship they are going to investigate, yes, that's the Event Horizon.
Poorly worded question, but I got the answers. That's good.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
At least it was in the right genre. Your
Shut
turn.
Okay, this is a numbers based one. You good with your numbers? Right. How many kills does Jigsaw have under his belt? From Saw through to Jigsaw. So we're not taking into account Spiral here.
Well, I suppose this is exactly how you want to define kills, doesn't it? Because technically he doesn't kill anybody.
Right, I'm not being pedantic.
Why? It's fun. Technically he doesn't kill anyone.
Yeah, okay,
They
that's not
kill
the answer I'm
themselves or
looking
each
for.
other. Well, I think you've got the wrong answer then, haven't you?
Well, so was he? So is he okay to be referred to as Jigsaw the serial killer?
No,
by that logic,
he's just Jigsaw. I've never called him a serial killer.
Just a bloke.
Just a bloke with some
Okay,
cool gadgets. How many people died in the films? I don't know. I'm going to go.
Even that's not a fair question because some people killed themselves.
How many people died as a result of Jigsaw's traps?
Better.
I'm going to go with 20.
Oh, you're so under.
Oh, really?
I'll give you another one. Give you another go.
30.
It's still so under.
What the fuck? 40.
Closer, but still so under.
Christ, go on.
76.
What?
Apparently.
How many fucking films?
9. Think about it. Saw 10's coming out, you spanner.
Yeah, but like the first film was only like 2 people died in that.
And then they really ramp it up from there. So there we are.
I suppose they do, don't they? Okay, fair enough. Okay, right.
That was good.
Yeah. One more. I've got my last one.
Have I?
I've got one more.
I've just asked what to ask me.
Yeah,
I was about to say.
yeah.
I just read out number 5.
I'm glad you're keeping count. The Exorcist 3 is based on which book by William Peter Blatty?
Oh. Oh. Is it The Exorcist?
No.
I have no idea.
The book is called Legion.
I have heard of that, annoyingly.
So you got
But
2 right.
did I?
Yes.
Ooh, so did you.
Oh, it's a draw. Well, there we go.
We'll shake hands virtually on that one and let's go about our day.
Yes. Okay.
Well done. That was very good.
That was
I enjoyed that
all
one.
right. That was all right.
So to round off,
Yeah.
let's do some picks.
Okay.
Our picks of Halloween must-watches. Whether
Yes.
you're listening to this, I don't know when this is going to go out. Pre-Halloween, post-Halloween. If you want to just muck with people on Christmas Day and you want to put this on, you know, Halloween is for life, not just for Christmas. That makes no sense. Let's move on. I'll go first. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah,
One of my favourite films to watch on Halloween is Cabin in the Woods. You mentioned Scream. It's very aware of itself. It's gory. It's funny. I think if you're trying to get into the genre, or if you're a fan of the genre, it makes a lot of sense to you. And it's Joss Whedon. It's great.
Yeah.
That's all. It's just a very good, comforting horror film.
Yeah, it's really good. It's very good. I love it. My first pick would be Ghost Watch.
Okay. Yes.
Heard of that one?
As a British person, yes, I have.
So for the ladies and gentlemen and boys and girls at home who might not have heard of that, it was done it's a BBC show. It's a television program, a one-off, and it was presented as if it was real. It was kind of presented in real time as a.
Who presented it? Was it Parkinson?
Michael Parkinson, yeah, and there was Sarah Green and Craig Charles.
What was in Roboballs?
Yeah, a Red Dwarf.
Sorry, Coronation Street.
Yeah. So it was presented as a live broadcast investigating poltergeist activity in a house in England.
Okay.
And it was hugely controversial at the time. For anyone who missed the introduction that said, and tonight's drama is a fake thing, right? So anyone who was like tuned in 2 minutes late, right? But it's really well done, very effectively well done. Obviously, having Parky doing the presenting, having presenters rather than actors in it, obviously helped with the thing. And it's very well done. And coincidentally, it's getting a brand new Blu-ray release on the 31st of October, with restored documentaries, audio commentaries, all the works. Yeah. So get yourself down to your local HMV or whatever you've got that'll sell it. Get it bought on Monday and get it watched. It's fantastic. One of the best British horror, quote unquote, films that there's been. Your turn.
I'm very much looking forward to seeing that because I've never seen it.
Have you never seen it? Oh, it's brilliant.
No. Anyway,
really good.
If anybody wants to send me one, get in touch with the podcast. Anyway, another comforting one for me because it's just fun. The original Nightmare on Elm Street. You can't go wrong. It's spooky, it's creepy, and it's slashy. It's great. Obviously, Robert Englund is one of the best horror actors to have ever lived, and he is Freddy Krueger.
Yeah,
that's it. It's a fantastic film. It's of its time, but it also birthed a studio. So
it did. The house that Freddy built, New Line Cinema.
Exactly. And there's an excellent documentary. It's available on Netflix at the moment. The Movies That Made Us.
Yes.
And it was a Halloween special, and the Nightmare on Elm Street one is just fab.
If you can find it, there's also a feature-length one called Never Sleep Again.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Which is really good. I think I say feature-length. It's at least a couple of hours long. A really good full-length documentary, mainly about the first film, but I think it goes into the sequels as well. And that's fantastic. It's from 2010. But yeah, it's 240 minutes long. So what's that? 4 hours long. and it just tells you everything you need to know about.
I'm
the
gonna give that.
films.
I'm a big Nightmare on Elm Street fan.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's
Thanks, Mark.
fantastic.
Thank you.
Never Sleep Again, it's called.
Excellent.
Okay.
Go on.
Oh, is it mine? Hellraiser, as I said before, the original one.
Needs no introduction, does
Needs
it?
an introduction. Proper low budget, proper horror, serious, British.
British.
Does something really cool with the genre, takes itself seriously. Phenomenal special effects. The makeup and animatronics and everything are just incredible. And yeah, it spawned a couple of good sequels, lots of crap ones, and if the reviews are to be believed, a very good reboot that we're still yet to see in the UK. But yeah, Hellraiser, can't go wrong with Hellraiser.
Very good, very good. My next one isn't a horror film per se. It's also not Cloverfield, but it's. Go on, I can hear you trying to say
No,
something.
you're just stretching the genre here.
I'm allowed to do that.
Yeah, okay.
I co-host this shit. I can do what I want. Um, it's scary in other ways. Is the point I want to get out of this?
Yeah.
Obviously, you know what's coming up because it's in the notes. But it's a 2004 thriller called Dead Man's Shoes, and it stars Paddy Considine, who's phenomenal. As you know, we've both finished House of the Dragon. That man deserves all the awards. He's an amazing actor.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it basically it's a revenge story. That's all I'm going to say because it's twisty, and you need to not know the twist going into it. Because I didn't, and it was fab.
Oh yes.
It's so bleak, such a bleak film, but it is scary for other reasons, you know.
Yeah.
Directed by Shane Meadows. Shane Meadows. Just watch it if you're feeling happy. Don't go into it if you're slightly glum. Put it that way.
I'd agree with that.
Brutal.
I'd agree with that. I think I saw it. It was made before This Is England, but I think I saw it after. And
it came to my hands of again a friend who's massively into his horror, which is where I got a lot of my stuff from. And he always wore a Dead Man's Shoes t-shirt. And every time I was like, what's that from again? And you'll probably know the image, Mark, so I won't spoil it for the listeners. But you said, "Oh, I watched this DVD," and yeah, bleak.
yeah, but fantastic, and you're right.
That's awesome.
Paddy Considine's just fantastic in it.
Yeah.
Next one is I couldn't really choose, to be honest, and I forgot to mention these earlier on. In terms of the early horror that I liked, was 80s David Cronenberg. So obviously The Fly was his kind of breakout huge commercial hit studio movie, which is still phenomenal. But then he had the earlier films like the original Scanners and Videodrome.
Okay. So I've not seen any of them.
They're phenomenal. I mean, The Fly is a classic, right? Just without a doubt. Jeff Goldblum, decent budget, again, incredible effects, just fantastic. Scanners is a sci-fi horror. Treat yourself. Proper kind of early 80s physical effects, body horror. They're where the term body horror came from, those early Cronenberg films. And if you don't know what body horror means before you watch them, you'll understand what it means afterwards. Take your pick. Any of those fantastic films.
Well done. I like those. We're still going. We
still
are.
Got
a few. I'm bringing it a bit more modern.
Go on.
I really like Studio A24. They've done some really good films in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Ari Aster, director.
Yes.
Made name for himself in horror with Hereditary, I think more widespread and name anyway.
Yeah.
Good film.
Yeah.
Didn't creep me out as much as Midsummer, which is my recommendation. Loved Midsummer. Follows a group of students going to Sweden to celebrate the Midsummer Festival.
Yeah.
All hell breaks loose.
Of course it does.
Very culty, graphic, and it's Mark's favourite actress, Florence Pugh.
Florence.
Well, move on before you get too excited, sir.
But no, it's a great film. It is. It's one of those ones that starts off quite slow, but kind of creeps up on you kind of thing. And it's fantastic. Fantastic. Okay. My next one is more of a whole franchise, which is Friday the 13th. As I said,
The original or any of the remakes?
well, let me get to that. As I said earlier on, I was never really into like the slasher, Freddy, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday 13th kind of stuff when I was younger. But a couple of years ago, I did watch a couple of the later Jason films. Jason Goes to Hell, I've always liked.
I've not seen that one.
Just because it plays with, it takes the whole thing of Friday the 13th and kind of deconstructs it a bit and plays with it, which I like. It doesn't take itself too seriously. But then I picked up the Scream Stroke Shout Factory box set of all the films a year or so ago and just kind of binged them all in a week. And they vary wildly in quality. And obviously, they were cut quite heavily in America by the MPA, some of the early ones. But they're just, some of them are just so much fun. I mean, ridiculous, low budget, trashy, fun.
Okay.
And so I think as an adult, I kind of appreciate that side of them in terms of that's what kind of put me off when I was younger, the fact they were trashy and stupid and so on. But now I can kind of see that as a plus rather than a minus. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
It's like I've done my serious horror, and now I'm kind of revisiting the stuff that's maybe a little bit more trashy and schlocky.
I like that. That.
Friday the 13th, and that includes all the originals. Obviously, Jason Goes to Hell is great. Jason X is good fun.
That's just fun, isn't it? Yeah.
Freddy versus Jason's great.
Yeah, agreed.
And then the Marcus Nispel remake, I enjoy as well. And he's the guy who directed the Texas Chainsaw remake, which is phenomenal. And after that, he did Friday the 13th, and I enjoy that as well.
Wait, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the 2003.
2003 one, yeah. He directed
That's a good one.
that.
I do like that.
That's brilliant, that film. And then he went on to do Friday the 13th as well. So,
cool.
Yeah, just good as a series.
Good, clean fun.
I couldn't pick out an individual, but just as a series, I just think they're just great, fun, trashy horror movies.
Bro. Yeah, mine's slightly cheating again. Because they're not all horror based, but they're macabre, dark, and twisty. And Inside Number 9, we're a fan of that on the podcast.
I'll let you have that one.
There we go. I don't need to say anymore. It's good around Halloween, especially some of the scarier episodes, which is, I'm sure there's a list online. Also, shout out to Sheer Smith and Pemberton. We love you.
We do.
Listen, but we don't care.
They did a live Halloween episode as well,
which I'm yet to bloody see.
Oh, it's just brilliant. But yeah, you're right. They're not all horror, but there's an element of varying degrees of darkness and twistedness.
Yep. They're genius.
And yeah, there's certainly enough to unsettle you in most episodes.
Yes.
Okay. My last one then is The Witch. The Robert Eggers horror movie. Again, it's one of those ones where it's straight down the line, serious, atmospheric. I knew virtually nothing going into it. I think I'd seen one trailer, which doesn't really give you much away. I'd read a couple of reviews, but that was it, and it just blew me away completely.
Okay.
Just atmosphere, the music, the look of it, the acting. It's got, Finchy from The Office in it. Ralph Ineson, who's just phenomenal. That voice just fucking rumbles.
It as soon as you hear it. Yeah, you know who it is. Yeah.
Anya Taylor-Joy in her first film. I think it was her first film.
I believe it was.
And if you listen to her natural accent at the time, it was kind of a mid-Atlantic accent because she kind of grown up in a few different places. But she has a pitch perfect Yorkshire accent. Genuinely. Have you seen the film?
No, but
Oh,
I know obviously who she is and her
yeah,
accent normally. So
absolutely. I mean, because Ralph Ineson's from Leeds anyway, and there's some kids in it who are like Yorkshire kids, I'm assuming. But her accent is just absolutely spot
yeah.
on. And the first time I heard her, like in interviews afterwards, I'm like, that's brilliant. Because not only can some Americans or foreign people struggle to do a straight English accent, but ask them to do a regional one,
Hmm.
and it falls apart completely. But hers is just perfect all the way through.
Brilliant.
But
I
it's
like
yeah,
that's a
just a
good one
great,
to end it.
just a fantastic film. Fantastic film.
Film was a bit boring to end it, but I really liked the Insidious
Oh
films.
God, that's a bit boring.
Like they're just again just solid, spooky,
Yeah,
some great tension and unease, and yeah, that's what
that's
makes a good horror film.
ultimately that's it exactly. A horror film is meant to make you feel uneasy,
Yeah,
and it could be in like all the way through, or occasional jumps, or whatever. But it's people, people go, oh, I don't like horror films because, they make me jump or whatever, whatever. That's the whole point, right? A comedy film is meant to make you laugh. If it doesn't make you laugh, it's not a very good comedy film. If a horror film doesn't make you feel uncomfortable
it's not
in
doing it.
in
It's not
in
right.
in some way or another, then it's not working as a horror film.
Agreed.
So people who complain that horror films are too gory or too whatever, that's kind of the point. I mean, one way or the other, they're designed to make you feel uncomfortable. Whether it's gore, whether it's atmosphere, whether it's jumps or whatever. Yeah, that's the point.
Well
Yeah,
said.
yeah.
Well said. And
So
that's
there we
it.
go. That is it. Now then,
That was our Halloween special.
that's also going to be it for a little while, I think,
Yes.
because we've kind of you've got various
Scrape the
things.
barrel.
Well, you've got various things going on which we're not going to get into, but are taking up your time at the moment.
Oh no, you make it sound like it's a negative thing. It's not a
Oh yeah,
negative thing
no,
at all.
no, but
It's a great thing. It's just it's
life is busy, right?
life is very busy,
Life is
and
busy, and it is a little bit for me as well right now. And so we're just going to take a bit of a break.
we've said in the past if we're not match fit to do these things, that comes first. We did that little
Exactly.
middle episode, didn't we? Just to let you know.
Mm.
And we've appreciated how far we've got with this. It's been really good fun.
It's been going for a
But yeah,
year.
it hasn't.
It has. Yeah,
When was the first one we put out?
October last year.
That's really cool. Well,
Mm.
congrats.
So we made it to a year.
It's not a bad time to have a bit of a good break, is it?
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to have a break. Don't know for how long.
No.
Might be a couple of weeks, might be a couple of months. We'll see. We might be back occasionally for a bit of a one-off kind of thing. We'll see. Might be.
It's going to be very time dependent on our part now.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and that's cool.
And
That's
it might
okay.
be the case that you come back and do something on your own for half an hour, wittering on, or I do something.
I'm gonna be Robbie Williams splitting from Take That.
So that's it for now in terms of regular episodes.
Yeah.
There might be some one-offs here and there, and I think we might have a think about what we want to do
Moving forward.
next.
Yeah.
Whether we try and get things more focused on every episode.
What do you mean focus? We're always focused.
Well, in terms of like at the minute, we've had all these ideas. There's some behind the scenes info here, folks. We've had all these ideas for like topics of the week, which never really got covered, kind of thing. So
Correct.
do we want to kind of have it as we concentrate just on a different thing each week? Or do we want to keep it as the general, here's the news, here's a quiz, here's a chat, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what works
Well,
better.
if you are listening to this and you have ideas, do let us know.
Yeah,
Genuinely.
yeah, absolutely. We're always open to feedback. So we're gonna see what we want to do going forwards in terms of if we want to change how it's done, etc., etc. But we will be back, but we're just not quite sure when.
Agreed.
But for now,
And it's not a bad thing.
oh no,
No, we're obviously Mark and I are still on good terms. We still talk. It's
oh
just the
yeah,
time commitment. It's just impossible.
it can get a bit hairy sometimes in terms of
You can get a bit
recording it.
hairy.
Yeah, have you never heard of that phrase before?
No, I said you can't. You get a bit hairy.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said airy.
No,
Oh,
hairy.
it doesn't matter.
Just in terms of like, it can be a bit of a rush, right? To kind of record, find a time we're both available, record it, then do the editing, blah, blah, blah. It can get yeah. So
Close to the wire. Yeah.
close to the wire. So I think, and we've both got stuff going on outside of this as well in the real world.
Ugh.
Dull, boring real world. So let's just have a bit of a break, bit of a breather, and then we will see
Ah, you did it.
what.
Oh, no. I thought you were going to say we'll see you soon, like I always say.
Oh no, I'll leave that for
Gutted.
you.
Ah. So, yes, listeners, we'll see you next time.
Yeah, we'll see you soon.